Welcome to the Jboy Show, hosted by Jake Crain, the fastest growing sports show in the nation.
I'm Coach Hugh Freeze.
This is Super Bowl champion Brandon Graham.
Hey, this is DJ Shockley, and you're watching.
And thanks for watching the Jboy Show.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for joining us on another special edition of the Jboy Show. The hits keep coming. I'm going to keep pumping them out. Got an unbelievable guest today, Hall of Famer, in my opinion, the best left tackle that ever played. Going to get to him in a minute. I do want to give a shout out to betonline.ag real quick over there. Their online casino is always open. Got some great Major League Baseball bets out there, parlays, teasers, pleasers, however you get down. I like to go the over-under on the run, so head over to betonline.ag today and tell them that Jboy sent you. But without further ado, let's welcome Pro Football Hall of Famer. Again, there's so many accolades that goes along with this guy. 9-time Pro Bowler, first-team All-Pro, top 100 players in the NFL. John Madden called him the best player in the NFL during a live game. That's former Florida State offensive tackle Walter Jones. Walter, it's an honor to have you on, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me on, man. Thanks for reaching out, and I'm looking forward to the interview.
Definitely. Now, the only thing, I'm not going to pass rush or anything. That's the only thing we're not going to do in this interview. But, you know, I want to start because your story is fantastic. You went to junior college at Holmes there in Mississippi. I know a little bit about that league. You go to Florida State. You redshirt your first year, and then just your career takes off after that. Can you talk about just preparing for that moment to where you got to play at Florida State? You started in those games and eventually was the 6th overall pick of the Seattle Seahawks, in which you played with your whole career.
It's amazing. I think when I got introduced to football, and you talk about high school and how it went, but then you still have to pick the schools you want to. And I went to Florida State for a summer camp, and I was impressed. And I said, "This is where I want to go." I wasn't the highly recruited player coming out of high school, so I had to do all the back work to get there. But I finally got there. But to get to Florida State was something that was one of my dreams. I knew going to Florida State, I would have the opportunity to play against some great players that could get me ready for the NFL if that's an opportunity. But I was just excited to get to Florida State because I tell people a lot of time that you play at Florida State. At that time, Florida State was ranked pretty high every year. They got all the top high school players. So your toughest opponent was playing practices during the week, and then when you got to the game was pretty easy.
Yeah, it's amazing. The old saying, if you make practice more important than the game's easy. And it seems the best teams are the ones that have the best players that practice the best. Because again, my dad used to say all the time, he's All-American linebacker at Auburn. He used to almost feel bad for the other offensive line. But you remember when defenses used to huddle back in the day a little bit, he'd look at, Tracy Rocker and Andre and Nate and all them. But, I always love these camp stories because recruiting, we know, is so crazy nowadays. I mean, with social media and the internet, huddle, you can watch kids from coast to coast. And there's still guys that are surprises. When you went to camp at Florida State, how quick were they like, yeah, we need to offer this guy? Was it pretty quick, or did you go through a process?
You know what? It wasn't that quick.
Wow,
what happened was I went there and I had a great camp. They was interested, but I had already kind of planted the seed. I already had sent highlight tapes to Florida State, so they knew who I was. But I was one of those kids that didn't have the grades, so you kind of you can talk so much, you can offer so much, but if a kid doesn't get the job done with saying get his schoolwork done, you can't say nothing. So Florida State told me, if you get everything situated and get right, we can offer you a scholarship or give you an opportunity. So I put all my eggs in that one basket, and I was like, okay, this is where I want to play at. So I did all the hard work to get there.
Yeah. Well, it's a bit, you put them in a pretty good basket. That was a hell of a basket. You put the eggs and ended up working out, but playing for Bobby Bowden, obviously one of the most famous coaches around. And can you talk about what it was like to play for him? Because every player that I've had on from Florida State that played for him, and I can go down the list, always talk about, he was a great coach, had a great mind, but he was a great person. He knew when to get after you a little bit, and he knew when to kind of lay off. Does that kind of fall in line with what you experienced?
Definitely. I think when you get recruited, you understand that you're going to be practicing against some of the greatest players coming out of high school. So for me personally, that's something that I wanted to do. But the cool thing, like you say, he knows his football, but he's a total family man. He comes off as a family man, and that's not sugarcoating. That's who he is. I can remember a story when I first got there. My first year there, walking on the field for practice one day, and he walked up and asked me how I was doing, and he asked me about all. I come from a big family, probably it's 8 of us, and he walked up to me and he asked me about all my brothers and sisters by name. So for him to do that kind of put him a special place in my heart, showing that he's a family man. He cared about it. He believed in what he spoke when he came to your parents' living room, saying, "I'm gonna take care of your kid, and I'm gonna treat him like he's one of my kids." And he definitely did that for me.
Yeah, and it's amazing the coaches that take the time to get to know the guys, because I never understood as a coach, how could I ask, regardless of how big the kid is, you to run into grown men, for 60, 70 plays and I don't know you, or you don't trust me, or I don't trust you. And a lot of guys can go in there in the recruiting process and say, listen, I'm going to do this for your son, and I'm going to love your son and do this. It's different to actually walk the walk, not just talk the talk. And it's amazing the coaches that walk the walk, the players will run through a wall for them. And to me, I think, you hitting on that just drives that point home even more. So you get to Florida State and correct me if I'm wrong, you redshirted your first year there. How was that? Was it because of an injury? Were you just not ready? Because that, especially being up front, people talk about, well, quarterback's so hard to play early and corner's hard to play early. And look, it is. But playing up front, I mean, that's hand-to-hand close combat.
It wasn't that. It was what happened when coming out of junior college. I was trying my best to get out of junior college as fast as I could. So I was taking correspondence classes too at the same time, because I was trying to get to Florida State in the spring. Because people were saying if you got there in the spring, they give you a practice. That spring practice, that spring game to kind of learn everything. So I was trying my best. But when I got there to Florida State, a lot of the classes, it took a second for all those classes. It's all about these classes.
Yeah, I know.
So when I got there for the fall, I was having that same problem throughout, going into the season. So some of the classes wasn't transferring to Florida State, and they were just trying to figure out. So once I got clear with all my classes and the classes that I took at JUCO clear at Florida State, it was like week 4 or 5. And so we just made a decision, like, let's just go ahead and redshirt this year. Yeah. So I redshirted my first year. It wasn't about injury, just everything just didn't get into place until mid-season. So they made a decision to redshirt me.
Now, and I know you want to play and you're a competitive guy, but, I redshirted, I got a bunch of buddies that redshirted, and for different reasons. Did that redshirt year kind of help you to see how it is at that level? Or, because I know obviously you're unbelievably talented. You're a big guy. You're able to move. You have great feet. I think that's what separated you. And again, that's just, you've forgotten more about the position than I know. But did that redshirt year help you, maybe more from a mental standpoint, just getting adjusted, having to do that? Or were you ready to come in and play? It was just a matter of those classes?
I was ready to play. I tell people, I don't know, a lot of people know this. My year that I did play at Florida State, I rotated with 2 other tackles. So, so I was rotating with Todd Fordham and Trey Thomas. So what would happen? Trey Thomas and Todd Fordham starting the game. So they'll go 3 series, and then I go in for the left tackle for 3 series. Then I go in for the right tackle. So I did that the entire season. Man. So that was easy for me. I thought it was, the coach was like, "You're too good of a player to be on the sideline." So we rotated offensive tackles that year that I played. My only year I played at Florida State, so I rotated with tackles that year. And I totally understood. I totally understand that, because the guys that had played there, Todd Fordham was year 5, so he had earned his starting job. Trey Thomas had sat for 2 years, and it was his time to start too. So, what I'm saying? It was one of those situations where they was like, okay, we got to get this kid on the field. So I was rotating with those guys throughout the whole season.
Did you ever look at one and be like, man, you look like a guard? You kind of look like a guard a little bit. No, but it's funny. And again, I was going to ask you this later in the interview, but it's such a perfect segue. So you're rotating at tackle, and look, from a coach perspective, you can never have enough good tackles. I mean, there's teams right now that would love to have 2 of them, let alone 3 of them. But you go to the NFL and you start every game that you play, unless I'm mistaken, including your rookie year. How crazy was it going from rotating? And you were the number 6 overall pick, rotating at offensive tackle. That's wild. I don't know if that's ever happened before outside of how different was it going from, all right, I'm rotating, I'm getting my PT. Obviously you got enough PT to impress some people enough to take you 6 overall. And then you get to the Seahawks and they're like, listen, you're the best tackle we have. You're going to start every game that you're able to make it to the stadium. You're going to start.
And that was told to me day 1 when I came to Seattle. Wow. You're the left tackle. And I don't know if that was that was their plan, but I kind of figured that it was being drafted that high that you're going to get playing time. And for me personally, I feel like that's how tackles, offensive linemen learn. You get thrown in the fight. So no matter how bad I was or how things was, I thought it prepared me. You don't make those mistakes anymore. You can sit on the sideline and visualize, but still, you're not in that fire, seeing what's going on, understanding what your line is doing. So for me personally, it definitely helped me a lot to get thrown in the fire. There was no pressure. I didn't have nobody behind me trying to beat me out. I just could go out and play football. And that's what I was able to do when I got to Seattle.
Yeah, and I had to give you a ton of confidence when they look you in the eye coming out of college saying, look, you're the guy, go do it. But did you have, and I'm sure you've always been confident, but, making the jump from college to professional, all the stuff, even off the field, is crazy, just getting used to that lifestyle and stuff like that. But was there an aha moment for you, whether it was in OTAs, whenever, where you got out there and you were like, man, I can do this. I can, not that you doubted yourself, where I'm coming from, you know what I'm saying? But going up against an NFL guy, and kind of having your way. Was there a moment where you're like, listen, I'm about to just roll over everybody they put out here?
You know what? I didn't have it my first year. My first year, I had an ankle injury, and I missed 4 games. And I heard rumblings, oh, he's a bust, and all that stuff. So the first year was kind of tough, just learning the game, just learning what it takes to be a professional. It wasn't about the football game; it's all about the being accountable. And then I tell people all the time, I think that the hardest adjustment was. You have to pay bills. You're getting a lot of money, but you got to realize you're coming from high school, you're coming from college, and everybody's taking care of everything. You don't have to worry about, do I have to pay my bills? So you got to understand that you're playing a game, and then you end up you leaving a dormitory. Now you got your own place, you got your own electricity, and you're so used to just getting up, going to work and practice. So when I got here. I was sitting at home one day just chilling, and the power went off. So I didn't know nothing about. I didn't know anything about checking my mailbox for bills and all that stuff. That was something that was major when I got into the league. That I had everything was in my name, and the bills was coming to my address, and I wasn't checking the mailbox. So I had to learn that quickly, that I have to pay my own bills. So that was a ha-ha moment. But for me personally, with football, I think I would say it probably took me probably 2 years when I everything kind of opened up to me. At first, I went into the game, blinders. I came in late, so my coach said, "All you gotta do is block the end." I don't know why he told me that, because my whole career was all about blocking the end. So I don't know why he made it seem like it was so hard to figure out. But I think once you figure out what everybody else doing, it makes the game so much easier. So once I became a student of the game, it made the game so much easier for me.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And you're not the only one. I'll be honest with you. I never knew how important it was to turn the lights off and don't stay in the shower forever until you start paying your own water bill and electric bill. Now I don't leave a room without the light being off. I'm making sure everything's off just to save that little extra money. That's funny because it's so true. Thank goodness we have online bill pay now, or I'd probably be a disaster, forgetting how to do it. But real quick, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsors over at Sunday Scaries. Head to sundayscaries.com. Unbelievable CBD company. If you have trouble sleeping, you have joint pain, having trouble relax, I take the gummies. They're fantastic. If you use the promotion code JBOY, that's JBOY, you save 25%, whether it's the gummies, whether it's the drops, and it's nothing crazy. You don't got to worry about that. It's just, it really helps relax. I'm a guy that tosses and turns at night. I'm always thinking in my sleep, and it really kind of helped me relax, even though some of my best ideas, I do believe, come when I'm tossing and turning. But if you're having trouble sleeping, head over to Sunday Scaries. That's SCARIES.com. Use that promo code JBOY. We're here with one of the best to ever do it, Walter Jones, NFL Hall of Famer, multiple-time Pro Bowler. How was it for you, Walter, as we kind of segue into the second half of this interview, staying with one team for your whole career, and you're a guy that played in Super Bowl, had all these accolades, but nowadays that's almost unheard of outside of a quarterback. And even Tom Brady went to a different team. If Tom Brady can go to a different team, I guess anybody can. But what was it like being able to play in Seattle, your whole career? I'm sure you developed such a rapport with the fan base and the management and stuff like that. It had to be a pretty cool setup.
Oh, it was pretty cool. I think I don't control that part of it, so. I think all players, once you find a team, you want to be with that team your entire career. For me personally, to be able to call Seattle home now, so that's pretty cool. But You have to take your hat off to the team, and you have to take your hat off to what I was able to accomplish and play the game the way I played the game. So it made it hard for them to give me that opportunity. I think all players, if you go out and play good, you always want to test the market. But still, again, teams respect the fact of what type of player you are. So you just have to, sign those tenders and hopefully you can get a contract done.
Exactly. And we all know, listen, they may draft the quarterback first, but the tackles come in second. It's not easy to find guys that are able to do it like you were for such a long period of time. And I want to ask you because there's a lot of guys that are big. And Walter, there's a lot of, I go to the gas station sometimes. I'll see a 6'6", 300-pound guy walking down the street, but that doesn't mean you can play in the NFL. That doesn't mean you can do the things that you were able to do. What separated you? Because fundamentally, you were obviously very good. Really good with your hands. I mean, you could anchor about as good as anybody and just punch the for lack of a better term, punch the hell out of people. But what was it that you think separated you and allowed you to have so much success and have such a long and really decorated career?
I think it's a lot of it's blessing. You're saying, I think you kind of find your niche and you kind of figure, okay, this is something that I can do. I can do it at a very high level. So now how do I become great at it? I think sometimes that's the hardest part. But for me personally, I tell people all the time, what made the game so easy for me, I had a lot of guys to watch. When I first got introduced to football, I used to watch Anthony Munoz's tapes. So, you had a guy to watch. And then once I got to the league, there were so many great left tackles in the league when I got in. You look at Willie Rofe, you look at Orlando Pace, you look at Jonathan Ogden, Tony Baselli. So for me personally, you kind of saw those guys, and those guys had set the standards on how to play. So for me personally, that definitely was something that I could watch every day, watch those guys. If I was going against a guy, I can watch and see how these guys block these guys. So, you just want to play just as consistent as those guys played the game. They didn't give up sacks. They didn't do this. So for me personally, that's the only thing I went into the game every year. I just wanted to be better than I was the year before. So that made it easy for me when I went home for the offseason and work out. I knew what I had to do to be ready for the next season.
Did you feel like you were competing with those guys? Because I know you're competitive, and you obviously, like you said, the other guys that are playing your position in the league. It's not just the quarterbacks that know it. Did you kind of feel yourself? And again, obviously when you guys play against each other, y'all weren't lining up against each other. You're on the same side of the ball. But did you feel like, hey, I feel like I can be in this upper tier? Obviously, you hit the upper tier. You're at the mountaintop. You're in the Hall of Fame. Did you kind of judge yourself based on how you played compared to them? Because I just found that if you watch someone and you emulate someone, that's the biggest sign of flattery that you can have.
I don't know. I think if all guys, I think you have to look at your peers and see what they're doing,
That's
for me.
True.
So I have to look at those guys and see what they're doing. If I'm going against a guy that, say, Orlando Pace went against the week before, and he shut him out the game. So now I'm thinking, okay, I got to go out here because now that, at that time, that's when the Pro Bowl was, you wanted to get those accolades back then, and you wanted to be the tackle that they choose. Mm-hmm. So for me personally, you watch those guys, and I think it's a inside competition. You're not speaking on it, but you watching and seeing what they're doing throughout the season. But you're not really, you're not trying to make nothing of it. But if I'm watching Jonathan Ogden and he haven't given up a sack in 5 games, that's what I want to do. Yeah. So those guys definitely set the standard of how to play the game and what team saw as a dominant tackle. So you just want to be in the conversation. So that's all I wanted to do, was just trying to be in the conversation. And I knew that had to come from me going out, shutting out guys, and being consistent every time I step on the football field.
Yeah, and you look at all your stats, you look at all their accolades, and they're fantastic. But one stood out to me, Walter, that I think it's going to put a smile on your face. 3 fumble recoveries. You were good around the ball, man. Was there ever one? Did you ever fall on one in the end zone, or because I always think it's so interesting, especially if there's a tip pass and an offensive lineman catches it. I forgot who it was a couple of years ago. The offensive line caught one and ran like 40, 45 yards down the field. But did you ever recover one in the end zone, or did you just see the ball and you're just jumping on it? Because I know once you got your hands on it, you weren't letting that thing go.
Hey, you know what? I tell people all the time, that was not my specialty, recovering fumbles. I didn't. You know what? I had a bad experience in Washington, man. One time the ball popped out, and it was going to the out of bounds, and I was thinking, okay, I'm just gonna stay there. It's gonna go out of bounds before I get there. But for some reason, this ball stopped right there on the that ball is shaped different, so it literally stopped. So I said, okay, I'm just gonna tip it out of bounds. And when I got ready to tip it out of bounds, I got hit probably by 8 guys, and I got put up under the other team's bench. And so after that, I was like, okay, coach, that's not my expertise.
You said block
covering.
the end. You said
Yeah, I
block
blocked
the
it.
end.
Like, there's nowhere in my contract where I have to touch that football. So
That's exactly right. Now, let me ask you, if for some reason you did it, maybe you didn't think this far ahead, but if you were to recover one in the end zone, would there have been a little celebration? I mean, would there have been a little Walter Jones, I don't know, stanky leg, a little something?
Oh, definitely. Especially now you can celebrate. So definitely, if that would have happened, I would have tried to make up something quick, because you can't. You look at the skill guys and what they do, but with us, we don't know when that's going to happen. So I probably would have did some, but those are far and for us to get a recovered fumble or get a pass. I tried my best throughout my career to try to get a touchdown pass on the goal line, but it never happened. My coach told me, he said, "Well, if they move you, everybody in the stadium gonna know what's gonna happen." So
exactly
never
right.
never did get a pass.
Yeah. We're gonna report this number as eligible. I wonder what
happened.
Yeah, I wonder who's getting the ball here. Walter hadn't caught one yet in his career. No, I would have saved it for the 2-point conversion or something. But man, this is great stuff. And I want to ask you about being accepted in the Hall of Fame and just that process of being notified. But before I do, what is one memory? I know you have a ton. I mean, you made a ton of great plays. I mean, more pancakes than a street full of IHOPs. But what play to you? Is there one that stands out to you the most? Maybe it's going up against somebody you had a lot of respect for and really kind of getting after their ass a little bit. Is there one that stands out a little bit to you?
Oh man, that's so many plays, but I have to say, I think everybody saw the one on YouTube where I'm blocking the guy like 15 yards in the NFC Championship game. Those are the ones that people always send to you and stuff. Though, in the league, you don't get that. You might pancake guys in high school, and you might get a couple of pancakes in college, but in the pros, you don't get it. You have to. It's all about leverage, and these guys are getting paid a lot of money. So anytime you get a chance that you can dump a guy on his head and get paid for it, doing it.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. But I think that, and the fact that we was able to have an NFC Championship game in the stadium, and be a part of the first team to get to the Super Bowl. So that was pretty cool too.
Yeah, I mean, you guys really paved the way, and you've seen what the Seahawks have been able to do. But my last question for you here, Walter, and this has been fantastic, man. I appreciate you taking some time.
Mm-hmm.
This is great stuff. I know the audience loves it. But how did you get notified of being accepted into the Hall of Fame? Because I mean, to me, that's the highest honor that you can get just from an accolade standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
You are literally in Valhalla, as they say, of the football world. How did you get notified about that? And what did that mean to you? A guy that went to junior college, got found out, at a camp from Florida State, went, like you said, basically redshirted your first year after you're waiting on some classes to go, and then rotating at offensive tackle. You are a Hall of Famer. How did that process happen, and how did it make you feel?
It was a crazy moment, man. I think the thing about it, I really didn't think about the Hall of Fame. I think when you play this game, you don't think about that stuff until it's over. And when I really thought about it, when I went to Cortez Kennedy Hall of Fame, and he was like, "Hey, Walt, you're next," and that's when I really started thinking about it. Like, oh man, I probably could be up there one. Then still wasn't bragging about it. But once I got that call, I think when they came out to the, you're eligible that year. And I tell people all the time that I was eligible in 4 years instead of 5 because I was injured my last year in the league. So they count that as a waiting year. I'm like, well, I wasn't planning on retiring at that time. Yeah. So I got into the Hall of Fame in 4 years. And it's an amazing moment. I think the cool thing about it, to see the guys that you watch playing ball and to be able to be in the same class with those people and to be saying that you're as good as those people. I think sometimes that's the hardest part, to be able to say that I belong here with these guys. So that's pretty amazing. And I tell people all the time, they say, how is it going back every year? I said, the cool thing about the Hall of Fame is what they do a great job of letting the guys not forget who they are and what they've done in this league. Every time that a guy goes back, they get better. It's like fine wine, though. Like this is not a place where, if you get older, you bring a younger guy in. These guys, some of these guys been in there for 10, 15 years, and now every year they get an opportunity to have the light shine on them every year. So there's no replacing nobody on this team. Once you own it, you're on it forever. So I think the Hall of Fame does a great job of that. To once these guys get there for that weekend, it's all about that guy, not it's not about nobody else. So I think that's a cool thing that happens there. And I'm like a kid, I get a chance to see Anthony Munoz. I see Lawrence Taylor, people that you just kind of like guys that kind of made the NFL, the guys you just know by just name recognition alone. So for me to be sitting in those same halls and rooms with those guys is pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, nobody does it better than the NFL Hall of Fame. And shoot, I get choked up watching the videos of knocking on the door and you see Randy Moss, just what it means. Because again, you reach this level of stardom and you're getting all these accolades and everybody knows how good you are. It just had to be, not a weight, I guess, lifted off your shoulders, but like you said, just such an inclusive club and you're there forever. It's like they say in Sandlot, heroes last a little bit, but legends never die. And I think that's a true thing. But Walter, man, this is fantastic. I'd love to get you back on the closer we get to football season, get some games played, ask you about your Seahawks and what you think. I'm be a big fan of Russell, but man, it was an honor to have you on and I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot, man.
Definitely. We appreciate you joining us. Head to the jboyshow.com, get you some merchandise. The gray hoodies are back. Make sure you check that out. Hats, anything, koozies we got coming, face masks. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Going to have more great content like this. Guys like Walter Jones, they don't get any better than that. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify as well. We're on iHeartRadio and everywhere else. It's been another edition of the Jboy Show. And Jboy's gone.
The Jboy Show is produced by David Cohn, Technical Director Dave Hammock, Creative Director David Culbertson, Audio Engineer Feyzan Shareef, Production Assistants Blaine Crain and Kyle Orr, Executive Producers Jake Crain, Vince Thompson, Steve Chamberlain, and David Cohn. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit our website, thejboyshow.com, for updates regarding our newest apparel and merch designs. Win the water cooler with the Jboy Show.